What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another Bible exploration and study. We're going to continue down our path of exploring the spiritual realm. And if you have not listened to the videos that we already did, I'd suggest you go do that, because those studies lay the foundation for what we're going to talk about today, which is giving access to spirits in our lives, whether we do it unknowingly or knowingly, intentionally or unintentionally. What are some of the things that we do? How did they get there? And what are things that we need to consider in order to make sure that we are protecting ourselves from these evil spirits having influence in our lives? First and foremost, we need to understand that God is a God of order, and He is a God that will legally back His decrees. When He says it, it will be done. Okay, even the death of Christ on the cross had to happen because of what He had already decreed in His covenants, in His unconditional covenants. And we'll get into conditional versus unconditional covenants in a completely different video. But we just understand that what Yahweh speaks, He has to abide by. Okay, because He's not a man that He should lie. He's not a man that He should repent. Isaiah 55:11 says that, "So shall my word be that goes forth from my mouth. It shall not return to me void, but it shall accomplish what I please, and it shall prosper in the thing for which I sent." So anything Yahweh has to say, anything that He declares, is going to happen. Okay. We also understand that Yahweh is not a respecter of persons. He's not a God of partiality. In 2 Chronicles 19:7, where they're setting up judges to rule over the land, they are reminding them, hey, you're not judging for mortals, you're judging on behalf of God, Yahweh, our God. So make sure you do it right. And in verse 7, they say, "Now therefore, let the fear of the Lord be upon you. Take care and do it. For there is no iniquity with the Lord our God, no partiality, nor taking of bribes." So Yahweh is going to be just in His judgment of the righteous and the unrighteous, the poor and the rich. It does not matter. You will all be judged according to your works and your thoughts and words, etc. Okay? So Yahweh is not a God of partiality. Now let's look at getting access into a life. Sometimes it comes by the allowance of God. Yahweh allows it sometimes, right? In Job chapter 1, verses 6-12, we all know the story of Job. Job is a righteous man, was blameless and upright in God's sight, and had all of this trouble throughout his life, or a portion of his life, I should say, because of the devil, but it was basically authorized by God. Let's read. "Now there was a day when the sons of God came to present themselves before the Lord, and Satan also came among them. And the Lord said to Satan, 'From where do you come?' So Satan answered the Lord and said, 'From going to and fro on the earth, from walking back and forth on it.' Then the Lord said to Satan, 'Have you considered my servant Job, that there is none like him on the earth, a blameless and upright man who fears God and shuns evil?'" So first and foremost, Yahweh knew what Satan was walking around on earth doing, because Satan never said, "I'm looking for who I should destroy or who I should wreak havoc on." But since that's Satan's whole MO and his purpose, Yahweh knew it. And the second thing to kind of unpack here is that you're telling me that Job is chilling, minding his business, being blameless, upright, shunning evil, and Yahweh gives access to him? Yep, it's Yahweh's sovereign will. He does so. But now let's unpack the second part of this. Starting in verse 9. "So Satan answered the Lord and said, 'Does Job fear God for nothing? Have you not made a hedge around him, around his household, and around all that he has on every side? You have blessed the works of his hands, and his possessions have increased in the land. But now stretch out your hand and touch all that he has, and he will surely curse you to your face.' And the Lord said to Satan, 'Behold, all that he has in your power, only do not lay a hand on his person.' So Satan went out from the presence of the Lord." So that's some more to unpack. First and foremost, Yahweh authorized it. He gave him the power to touch everything that Job had except his life. But here's the key. Satan answers Yahweh and says, "Have you not made a hedge around him, around his household, and around all that he has on every side?" That means, yes, Satan has already considered wreaking havoc on this blameless, upright man, because he saw the hedge. He saw the hedge around his life. He saw the hedge around his household, and he saw the hedge around his possessions. So just because you are saved and sanctified and you said, I'm following Christ, that does not exempt you from Satan considering coming on your life, right? So we need to understand that there may be access given by God in order to take us through a season of pruning, to take us through a season where he needs to shake something off of us to take us to a higher level. There may be times where we may encounter these temptations. In Matthew 4, we read it in the last video, even Yeshua was tempted by Satan. So we need to understand that our walk with God does not exempt us from the temptations or from the attempt on certain aspects of our lives by Satan. Okay? But that is one way that he or other spirits do get access, is through Yahweh removing the hedge from, because he's not a respecter of persons, and there is a lesson in every thing in which he allows in our life. So let's jump over and see an example of us giving access to the enemy. We look at 2 Samuel starting in 11. We're not going to read this whole thing. I'm just kind of going to paraphrase. We look at David is enticed with a spirit of covetousness. He's enticed with the spirit of adultery, and he carries these things out and commits very unrighteous acts before God. He takes he's looking with lust at one of his soldiers' wives, finds out that she is married, whose wife she is, and commits adultery with her, having a kid, kills her husband. And this was all because he was allowing himself to be subject to those spirit and those feelings of the flesh that he had towards this woman. And what was the recompense for that, right? His daughter was raped. One of his sons slept with his concubines, making the shame of Israel. He had 3 of his other sons all died. And then a kid that he had with Bathsheba died. And that was like one of the most painful things for him. But it shows that even God's chosen, who deliver themselves unto spirits and allows the influence to play in their lives, will actually have judgment against them as well in some way, shape, or form. And Yahweh showed David that you will be judged as well. You broke 3 commandments in one situation, bro. Like, what are you doing? So that's what had to happen in order for Yahweh to be just, although David was his servant. Okay. So what are some of the things that we need to consider when we're looking at whether or not we're giving access? I'll make this very brief. First and foremost, let's look at the proximity to territories that are governed by certain principalities and spirits that oppose God. Okay? Think about Lot when he was in Sodom and Gomorrah, and Abraham had to plead with Yahweh, basically bargain with him that if he found anybody who was righteous in that land, when Yahweh was ready to go judge Sodom and Gomorrah, Abraham said, if you find, even 50, even 40, even 30, right? He's trying to plead for Lot. Lot was in that proximity of a land, of a territory that was sinful and against God and not turning away. And had there not been intercessory there, that could have turned out a lot different for him, right? So think about where you are in proximity. Do you live in a city where there is just all types of things going on that are clearly against God? Are you participating in these activities, allowing yourself to be subject to judgment or subject to influence by these principalities, by these spirits that are running so rampant in these cities and in these people inside these cities? So think about that, and think about the way you engage with the people there. And that brings me to my next point. Think about the company you keep. We can't help where we live sometimes, whether it be for work or your kids or whatever the case may be. We can't help where we live, but we can help with the company we keep. 1 Corinthians 15, 33 through 34, he says, do not be deceived. Evil company corrupts good habits. Awake to righteousness and do not sin, for some do not have knowledge of God. I speak this to your shame. So we need to understand that there is good and there is evil, period. We can't grade a line when it comes to Yahweh's word. That's why we do this study. We're talking about what is Yahweh's word when it comes to X situation or X activity, right? And what Yahweh's word says is what his word says. And you can choose to either agree with it or not, but it's his word. And which way you decide to go will be what you will be judged on, right? So when you're looking at the company you keep, if that company is taking that wide road, that new age road, that road that is clearly leading away from Christ, you need to understand that that will corrupt your habits, your thoughts, your morals, and start to cause you to conform to their ways. And, Romans tells us not to do so. The whole Bible tells us not to do so, but we want to be able to make sure that we are truly separated when it comes to people viewing who you are versus who the world are, right? We are called to be a holy nation, holy meaning to be set apart from everyone else, okay? And if you are still unsure, my prayer for you guys, I pray in according to Philippians 1, 9 through 11. You are still unsure, like I'm walking around and I'm seeing this, that. It seems a little bit ambiguous. I'm not sure how to take this. It seems a little bit like that person might be trying to be legalistic by telling me not to do such thing. But, I'm freed in Christ. My prayer is that you continue to grow in knowledge and discernment of God, right? In Philippians 1, 9 and 11, he says, and this I pray, that your love may abound still more and more in knowledge and all discernment, that you may approve the things that are excellent, that you may be sincere and without offense to the day of Christ, being filled with the fruits of righteousness, which are by Yeshua HaMashiach, Jesus Christ, to the glory and praise of God. So that is my prayer for you and everybody listening here. It's my prayer for myself so that we can continue to discern what is right, grow in our knowledge of Yahweh, grow in our knowledge of Christ, to be able to walk in this world producing fruit for the kingdom. So go ahead and check out those verses inside the description. I will leave them all there for you so you can go study them on your own. Study everything in context. Get an understanding of the stories so that you can now start to look and apply it in our lives. And then we'll pick back up in our next spiritual warfare video. We'll pick back up with actually praying in the spirit and having an effective prayer life. So I hope this blesses you. And until next time, let's look to advance the kingdom in our lives and that in the others that we touch.